Listen, horror this year has been up to a good start with a wide range that's like psychologically haunting. You know, there's been movies that are slow but have been some of the goriest slashers that I've seen in a minute. And now they've got one that's following up a 2008 scary movie that I absolutely love. I think that first one is a classic. I just rewatched it and I think it still holds up. The follow-up, I hate it, though. Like, I have a video for that one, and I went back to listen to it, and I could still hear the pain in my voice. And while I feel bad for Past LME, he might feel even worse for me. At first, I thought it was a good thing that they were restarting the timeline, because even the producer's been going on tour, dissing the last one.
Do I want to make like a sequel like Prey and Night? Not really.
To be honest, I wasn't so in love with Prey and Night, the sequel, because I just wasn't.
But then I found out he did After, which I wish I knew beforehand. They said that this one was supposed to be the most brutal out of the series, and they might have meant that for the audience, because, well, I'll be nice and say it's not shot bad. The sound mixing is pretty good, and Madelaine does a decent job. But man, this is a remake, reboot, and a retread of the original. This is just an outline of the first movie so that they could redo the series, but then they cut their full movie that they had into thirds. Like, they got another part that's coming out later this year, and then another one at the top of 2025, because they already filmed all of it? Like, they're selling you an episode. This is just the first act. They really meant chapter 1 while charging you for the full price of the book.
I'm putting cases on all you bitches.
Man, I want my money back. I got it through A-list, but still, I expect a fourth check-in for the next week. Honestly, tell me why this girl was scarier in If.
Hi. Oh, God.
So with a full spoiler warning for your safety, let me explain. So the movie begins with a guy dying in the woods who ends up appearing in missing posters later in the movie, but then really does go missing because they're not going to talk about him until the next chapters. And so it just cuts to the opening text, which copies what the first movie said, with there being 1.4 million violent crimes a year. And luckily it hasn't grown since 2008. But they add this stat that one happens every 26.3 seconds, and that 7 have occurred since we started watching this film. And I think those 7 were watching this with me in the theater.
I have to ask, did you know how to play piano? Or you guys just have to put up with this all day?
But they also don't do it every interview, so it always continues to shock us. It's completely random.
We then cut to a couple who's going to Portland as they celebrate their 5-year anniversary, and they decide to stop at this diner, which should have been warning number 1, because after watching that new Yuma movie, if I see this guy, you just know you gotta keep it moving.
Are you sinners?
Aren't we all?
They end up talking to another couple who says that they're also celebrating their anniversary, but that's when we learned that our main character's never married, because at some point, I think on their first date, she mentioned that she never wanted to tie the knot, and since then there's been this miscommunication, and he just never put a ring on it, something that they flipped from the first one. They even have these similar Mormon boys appear, just like the original had, but in that one, they were the kids who find the couple mutilated. Here, they look like the evil ones who might have done it. It feels like that, especially after they find their car not wanting to start, and the boyfriend kind of blames the town, saying that it's a scam, that the mechanics might have done it when they were out there eating, and now they have to spend the night. And while I'm not saying that he's wrong, little does he know he's in for a cruel summer.
Do you hear that? The silence.
Now they're at this cabin in the woods with no car, no food, no good script, but they really thought that they were cooking with this Budweiser shot where you can see his eye through the six-pack. Like, you didn't think to get groceries, though? Because the fridge is broken, they call up the host to come fix it later, and in the meantime, they decide to make out. Before...
Is Tamara here?
No.
The strangers introduce themselves like they always do and then run off, and even though this guy already suspected this town of running a scam, he decides to leave his girl alone because dude forgot his inhaler in the car that's at the mechanics. Again, this is just because the 2008 version has the guy also go out, so they just had to copy it. You know, this is all just a reskin because they legit have this boy get a random motorcycle just to drive out. Maya now has to get taunted by herself with them knocking again for Tamara, leaving her so spooked she twitches like Tia. And they do this garbage disposal jump scare that was just pure trash. They copy the creepy vinyl bit from the first, consistent of the greatest hits never played, but then they do my least favorite thing in horrors. Maya decides to play the piano, and somehow the bag-headed man is sitting there with a front row seat. Then he just magically disappears. They then do that again when he's literally right outside her see-through shower and just vanishes. Like these aren't strangers. They're Batman.
It definitely felt like this could happen to me.
Meanwhile, Ryan almost gets bashed for breaking into his own car. After getting his inhaler, he goes to order a burger with no meat for his vegan girlfriend and finds the other couple from earlier sitting there with another couple from earlier. And we're going to have to come back to that because I think in order to figure out what they have to do, you got to buy another ticket for the sequel. He returns to the cabin to find Maya hiding in a closet because she had found a stranger in another closet, and this man just dismisses her saying that no one's there. while also being sick and tired of the people who are always there, knocking. Again, they changed his character, but still tried to play it off like the original, where it was crazy nuanced. Again, go watch that one. I highly recommend it. Stop this video right here. Because in that one, they have this fight early on where he's gripping the wheel looking all agitated. She looks all jumpy. You see that man make calls just to disappear and then reappear after another suited killer came in. Like, when you watch that one for the first time, it's an actually well-directed horror movie that stands outside of this franchise. Here they changed this dude's name to Scarecrow because they wanted to sell more Halloween masks.
We have 30 more chapters to explore after this. This is our Star Wars of horror.
Maya eats her burger with no meat while he keeps spilling ketchup, only to find out that he didn't order extra Heinz. It's actually a dead bird hanging from the lights they never noticed. The strangers then break in through the doors that they decorated with hellos. They smash their phones since these bozos left them behind. They blow up the bike, and this man keeps leaving his inhaler behind. They then decide to go through the crawl space since the main floor upstairs wasn't dangerous enough, and they get hit with rats.
No, rats are outside, mice are inside.
Yo, but what if a mouse goes outside? Does it become a rat? And if a rat is in the house, is it a mouse?
I ain't never seen no mouse outside. That's what I'm saying.
That's because it's a rat, fool.
Hey.
As they're crawling on what the director said was literally real glass, Maya gets a nail pierced right through her hand as they rush out of this quiet place. Obviously, they have to hit up the shed outside since, it's for the homage, but that's where Ryan picks up a shotgun and, trying so hard to be the hero, ends up shooting the host Joe who just arrived. And it must have been an electric Jeep because you couldn't hear that at all. I know it may be a broken record on this, but yes, this is a flip on the dude from the first who accidentally shoots his buddy who was helping him throughout the whole movie, even decorated the spot for the proposal, put him flowers out, and then blasts him when he actually comes in to help.
Listen, man, I'm outside. I got here early. I just decided to come out and, just be here for you as soon as I possibly could, because you know how I like to wait on you hand and fucking foot.
Yeah, it's Glenn Howerton from Always Sunny and Blackberry, both better horror projects. They then tried to take his car but get rammed by their Ford, leaving them to split up when Ryan gets trapped.
Ryan, go now!
Personally, I'd take his truck that's still running, because if you remember even in the second one, they had him ghost riding the whip when it was on fire. That thing's indestructible. Maya then decides to make the most noise possible while running into the woods and chooses to hide in the most obvious place that's completely lit by moonlight. She's literally making eye contact with the pinup girl, thinking that just because God created her in autumn mode, that she's just gonna blend in with the leaves.
What I think is so important in the Strangers universe is that it feels real.
Luckily, the host flip phone has minutes and she's able to call 911, but then she realizes that she's tucked herself in the spot where they hide the bodies, snuggling right next to the corpse of the guy from the beginning. Should have snatched his watch. She then tries to run away, but at this point, you can be in the literal desert, haven't done a whole 360 to your surroundings. These guys are gonna be appearing like they teleported. See, what they're missing from the original is that had that iconic shot of the bagman where he was hidden in the shadows, and that was extra creepy because, at any moment, he could just dip away easily while he's stalking her. In this new one, they pop up like they're Goku.
To do a remake of just The Strangers would be lame.
Ryan eventually holds one at gunpoint, but doesn't shoot, even though he had no problem blowing off the faces before. And instead, this chick starts doing yoga stretches on him. Then the big one, instant transmissions next to him. No noise, forget the twigs and the leaves, just a loud punch sound effect as he gives them a knuckle sandwich. Vegan 2. They're now tied up doing a community theater rendition of the first movie, where they finally propose to spend the rest of their lives together. Since it's just about to end. Clever boy, he waited till death did him part. After stabbing her and leaving them to bleed out, they head out as the cops arrive right after. And I don't know if you guys heard about the original or not, but it's creepier, because the way that they edited, it gets you so close to seeing their faces, but then it would just cut. It's almost like the only ones that get to see them without the masks are the people who won't survive.
Why are you doing this to us?
Because you decided to remake a classic. In the end, she survives long enough to see the sequels, and she's a producer, and is in the hospital as they hit you with a to be continued. Now, let's look at the future. They said that the whole series is supposed to take place within 5 days, with them wanting to release Chapter 2 later this year, and then the finale at the beginning of next year, so it's kind of similar to what Fear Street did, where they were going to release it in theaters a couple of months apart, but then COVID hit and it went to Netflix, and I think that one might have done a little bit better. Mainly because they said that all 3 of these were filmed in 50-ish days, which I think is absolutely crazy. They even admitted to filming all 3 within 1 day jumping around, and that they had trouble keeping the makeup in place.
Did you guys have a system in place in order to just try and keep track of it all?
We didn't have it.
Organized chaos.
To me, this is all just one movie that they split up, which is why they keep talking about releasing them as a super long assembly cut.
But our secret dream is then one day after that, we will actually cut the three movies together and it'll be re-released as one movie, because we want to see what the audience is going to think about going to see a horror movie that is 4 hours long. That's never been done before.
Now that sounds like a horror. So here's some theories. They keep talking about small towns, and I feel like that's going to play a big part in the sequels, because they did bring the Mormons back, and it's more than just the little kids who look really creepy. They even had the food truck giving out tracts. In the first one, they even hinted that there was a newbie who was in the group who was told that it'll be easier next time.
Are you a sinner? Sometimes.
What I am worried about is that, they're gearing up to release the next one in October, November, and I think it'd be really corny if they make Ryan right and that it was all a scam and they want to blame a small town for the violence, because they already had that part where the group at the food truck emphasizes on him being a New Yorker and that he looks down on them. They did switch the iconic line from being
Because you were home.
to
Because you're here.
and they even have Pinup Girl and Scarecrow look like a couple, so I don't know if they're trying to connect it to the town people and their anniversary actually just being the killings.
Which of the strangers is scariest, do you think? Which one gets under your skin the most?
I watched them like all after I filmed, just because I didn't want it to impact how I did it. But no, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Oop, spoilers. They also randomly had an ally ad at the beginning, so we'll see how those funds come into play and how it connects to the characters, especially because the producers, get this, they keep hinting that the real strangers are actually the victims.
So who do you think are the strangers in this movie? Like the main couple or the killers?
I think that's a great point, because traditionally we think the strangers are, of course, the strangers who come to their house and start terrorizing them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you could say in this one, because our couple happens to go into this little town and they go into an Airbnb, and the town people kind of look at them like, okay.
Like strangers?
Yeah. So they are the strangers themselves.
Bruh. How? Now, there's always been this theory that one of these movies is going to show you how they gather the killers, how they collect the strangers. And there's this idea that it might be Maya after everything she goes through. And look, just because I don't like this one doesn't mean that the sequels, once this new story actually starts, won't be good. Madelaine's not bad in this movie. I think she has potential. I just doubt the writing is there.
A character-driven piece about like what happens when someone is pushed beyond their breaking point time and time again.
And a change of attitude in our lead characters, because I think we all have a tipping point, and I have a feeling Madelaine's character is going to reach that tipping point.
It's really her story and a story of like what can happen to a victim of this type of violence if you survive. What can happen to you, and how can that mentally completely change you?
That would be goofy, but we'll see. In the end, this video wraps. Thank you all for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts about any other movies but this one down below in the comment section. In doing my research, I even found out that this is a director who did Die Hard 2, and his IMDb really touts that he's the biggest finished director. But for me personally, he's finished after this one. Like, I really like the first one because I thought that one was super scary because the horror felt like calculated chaos. Here they're stabbing characters like elderly Vegas people play slots. It's just button pushing. There's no reason why Geico characters in a commercial were smarter than this one.
Why can't we just get in the running car? Are you crazy?
Now look, believe it or not, I'm not against reboots or remakes. I just don't like bad ones, because I'll take a remaster. But this just feels like refurbished stuff. Like I said, this feels like one big movie that they split into 3, and they're just like, they should have released it into 1, but they barely had a feature. And I don't know, I don't like it.
You watch chapter 1 and it ends, but the movie's not over until the end of chapter 3. Like, that's our real ending of this movie. This is just, you got a breath, like an intermission, and now you're like gonna pick up at the very next scene, literally, of what happens next.
Other than that, let me know what actual horror movies you're looking forward to this year, what has been your favorite so far, and until next time, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, or Tamara will knock on your door.
You're going to sustain not knowing who those strangers are for a lot of movie 2, but in movie 3, you're actually going to go back and see their exact origin and where they came from.
Then that wouldn't make them strangers.